Welcome back. Today we begin exploring one of the most fascinating phases of English literature, the transition from Chaucer to Spenser, roughly between 1400 and 1550. Now, why is this period so important? Well, it marks the shift from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance. English literature doesn't just continue as before, it evolves in a new direction. Writers begin to look back at classical texts, and the fresh wave of humanist ideas starts influencing poetry, prose, and even drama. But remember, this isn't happening in isolation. The entire society is in flux. Political, social, and religious changes are reshaping people's worldview. The rise of the Tudor dynasty helps consolidate a sense of national identity, and with it, literature becomes more distinctly English in voice and purpose. Another major turning point, the development of early modern English. Language itself is changing. Words, spellings, and expressions begin to resemble the English we recognize today. This makes the literature of this period especially exciting. It's halfway between medieval patterns and modern clarity. And of course, we cannot forget one of the greatest revolutions, the printing press introduced in England by William Caxton in 1476. For the first time, books became widely available, reaching beyond monks and nobles to merchants, townsfolk, and an emerging middle-class readership. Literature, quite literally, goes public. This is also the age when we see the emergence of new poetic forms and styles. Experimentation with meter, rhyme schemes, allegory, and narrative gives us texts that bridge the medieval world of Chaucer with the Renaissance richness of Spenser. So in short, this period is a true hinge in literary history. Medieval traditions giving way to Renaissance humanism, all under the influence of political change, religious reformation, and the spread of print. Now, before we move further into the literature, it's really useful to pause and look at the political backdrop. Remember, literature of this age was deeply shaped by who sat on the throne. From 1400 to 1550, we see huge shifts from the Lancastrians and Yorkists fighting in the Wars of the Roses to the Tudors stabilizing England and launching the Renaissance spirit. Let's quickly walk through the monarchs of this period. We begin with Henry IV, ruling from 1399 to 1413. He was the founder of the Lancastrian dynasty. Next comes Henry V, ruling from 1413 to 1422, famous for his legendary victory at Agincourt, a battle Shakespeare would later immortalize. Then we have Henry VI, who reigned in two stretches, 1422 to 1461, and briefly again from 1470 to 71. He was a weak king, and his reign saw the turmoil of the Wars of the Roses. Out of this civil war rose Edward IV, a Yorkist king, ruling first from 1461 to 70, and again from 71 to 83. After him, a tragic figure, Edward V. He reigned only a few months in 1483 and is remembered as one of the mysterious princes in the Tower. Then came Richard III, ruling from 1483 to 85, the last Plantagenet king, killed dramatically at the Battle of Bosworth Field. This defeat cleared the path for the Tudors. And so begins the Tudor age with Henry VII, from 1485 to 1509. He stabilized the kingdom and ended decades of dynastic strife. His son, Henry VIII, ruled from 1509 to 1547. One of the most famous English kings, known for his 6 wives and for launching the English Reformation. After him came Edward VI, ruling briefly from 1547 to 1553. A Protestant king, but his rule was fragile and short-lived. And though just outside our main cutoff, it's worth noting Mary I, reigning from 1553 to 1558, remembered as Bloody Mary for her attempt to restore Catholicism. So you can see, the early Tudor period was one of religious upheaval, dynastic battles, and cultural transition, all of which directly fed into the literature of Chaucer's successors and Spenser's age. Alright, let's map out the major timeline of the Tudor period, and trust me, this is exam gold. So keep your notes ready. We begin in 1485. This is when Henry VII becomes king, marking the start of the Tudor dynasty. With him, we enter a brand new political and cultural era in England. Then, in 1509, his son, Henry VIII, takes the throne. Now, Henry isn't remembered only for his 6 marriages. He's also a patron of Renaissance arts and humanism. His reign opened the doors for continental influences to shape English literature. A turning point comes in 1517. The Protestant Reformation begins. This religious upheaval completely reshaped Europe, and in England too, it set the stage for profound cultural and literary changes. By 1534, Henry VIII passes the Act of Supremacy, declaring himself the head of the Church of England. This break with Rome reverberates through English writing. Religion and politics now become inseparable from literature. Next milestone, 1558. Elizabeth I becomes queen, and with her begins the Elizabethan era, what we proudly call the golden age of English literature. Now comes a date every student remembers, 1564, the birth of William Shakespeare, the single most influential playwright in English literature. Fast forward a little to 1587, the execution of Mary, Queen of Scots, not only shaped politics but also introduced tragic themes that ripple through English and Scottish literature. Just a year later, in 1588, England defeats the Spanish Armada. The sense of national pride from this victory is echoed in literature, drama, and poetry. And in 1590, we get a literary landmark. Edmund Spenser's The Faerie Queene is published, a cornerstone of English Renaissance literature. Finally, in 1603, with the death of Elizabeth I, the Tudor period comes to a close. The Stuarts take over, but the groundwork laid by the Tudors ensures that English literature continues to flourish.